Hi, everyone. My name is Milad Maymay. I'm the Director of Program Operations and Student Management for the Master of Data Science program, Vancouver campus. I would like to acknowledge that UBC's Vancouver Point Grey campus is situated on the traditional, ancestral, unceded territory of the Musqueam people. I would also like to acknowledge that you are joining us today from many places near and far and acknowledge the traditional owners and caretakers of those lands. Thank you for joining us today. We are at 4:30 Vancouver time. Before we get started with the question and answer portion of today's session, I have a couple of notes I would like to share with you. This session will be recorded so that those who cannot be with us live can listen to it later. Number two, when you registered for the session, you had the opportunity to submit questions in advance. So we have selected the most common questions and we'll ask these questions to our alumni panelists. Number three, you may also post additional questions by using the Q&A feature of Zoom. If we have time, we may be able to answer some of those questions at the end. And finally, please be aware that we will not be able to answer any admissions-related questions because our alumni panelists probably will not know the answers. For example, if you have questions about admissions requirements or financial aid, we will have another live question and answer session in December that you can join and ask those questions. So please look for an announcement about this admissions Q&A session in your email inboxes. So because we only have an hour, I will talk less and go straight to our panelists. Maybe I will ask our panelists to introduce themselves and talk a little bit about their backgrounds and which MDS program they graduated from, so which year they graduated. So Jordan, did you want to start?
Hello, I'm Jordan. I just finished the most recent MDS cohort that wrapped up in June. I'm from Vancouver, and my background in the program was as a software engineer primarily, with a focus on sort of like the more mathematical side of things. And then I also spent a few years working as a marketing analyst prior to the program. Yeah, and currently I'm going to be just starting a job as a software engineer for a company called Parallel Domain in Vancouver.
Great,
Margot?
Thank you, Jordan. Margot?
Yeah, hi, my name's Margot. I also just wrapped up the 2022 cohort here in June. I'm originally from the States and I currently live in Vancouver. My background, I have an undergrad in math, and then I worked in academia, studying hydrology and glaciers and snow and ice and stuff like that. But I kind of wanted a big switch and wanted to get out of the academic world. So I now have my degree in data science, and I now actually work for a construction firm in Vancouver as a data engineer. So.
Thanks, Margot. How about Chao?
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Chao. I graduated in 2019 June, so it's been more than 3 years. Prior to joining MDS, I have a business and an economics background. I worked in advertising, and now I work for Pinterest as a data scientist.
Great, thank you, Chao. So you all have very different backgrounds. Can you tell us if you found the MDS program difficult because of your background, or how did your background help you in your in the program?
Yeah, so I would say for me that my background really helped me to get off to a pretty fast start. Like a lot of the Python and coding stuff I was already familiar with. A lot of the statistical concepts that basically near the beginning of the program, I also was familiar with them, or at least had heard of them before. So yeah, I think overall I was kind of set up well to be really successful in the program right from the get-go.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well with my background. I'd done a lot of coding before. The program starts out pretty quick on the coding front. So it definitely helps to have a coding background. You don't need one per se because they will teach you it, but it is very fast paced. So it's nice to have a little coding background. And then for me as well, I had the statistics background and everything. So it definitely helps having a bit, at least from my perspective, it helped quite a bit.
I don't have an intensive background in coding prior to joining the program. I've used SQL and data visualization tools in my past work experience. However, I only started learning coding maybe a couple months before joining the program. So I would say I don't have much real world experience with coding prior to joining MDS.
Okay, so how, if somebody wants to apply to the program who maybe doesn't have that much coding or statistical experience, what do you recommend that they do prior to joining the program?
Well, personally, I would probably, if I didn't have the background going in and knowing how kind of the program starts off pretty quick, I probably would like to just kind of get a base knowledge of how coding works, kind of the structure of a coding language, stuff like that, because then you'll just be probably a little more set up to be able to ingest kind of all the information that's being thrown at you. So
yeah, like I would really try to at least get some hands-on experience with like basic Python and the standard libraries and the ability to do some simple scripting or maybe even write a function. That way, you'll be able to you'll be set up well to not sort of be behind. And yeah, I think it would help a lot.
Chao, did you have anything to add to that, or?
No, I think that's all well said.
Okay, great, thank you. So what made you choose the MDS program?
So for me, I wanted to make a change. I've been in academics doing a lot of coding work, and I knew that I just wanted something different. So after applying for a lot of data science positions without any luck, I kind of turned towards wanting to get some education in data science in some form. And I found this to be very reputable. You have a full master's degree when you're done. And for me, a big thing was that it was 10 months because I do have another master's degree. So I wasn't looking for research-based or anything like that. I just wanted to do my master's and be able to start working as soon as I was done.
Thanks, Margot.
Yeah. And yeah, I don't know. I just reiterate that I think for me is quite similar, but I think the reputation of the program was one reason that I really wanted to go and do this one, as well as, yeah, it being a year long just meant that you could get back into the work, basically back work faster than maybe some other routes where you'd be in school for a few more years. So that was really appealing to me.
Yeah, same here. I actually know someone who attended the program a year before, and they've given very positive feedback. And considering the timeline and my personal goal, I think this is a very practical program for me to apply to.
Great, thank you. I just want to go back to the coding and languages, computer languages. A question that we asked earlier. There's some follow-up questions that came into the Q&A. So one is, what are the computing languages used in the program? Is everything Python or? Python
and R are the two that we used, yeah. So getting some experience with both of those, and I'd say they're equally used in the program or pretty close to equal. So yeah, having experience with both of those languages will really help you out.
Great. And then a question for Chao. Since you had limited programming background, what was challenge? Was it challenging for you? What was the most challenging? How did you absorb all the information?
Yeah, good question. I think the program, back when I was in the program, the first module was basically set up for people to have like a basic understanding, or to just like fill in some gaps in terms of like basic knowledge gaps. And that was helpful for me. For some more advanced classmate that they might have a slightly different experience, but for me, I think that really prepared me well for the following modules. So I wouldn't say, I mean, of course, the more experience you have, the more practice you have, the better. But I think the program really was structured well to prepare everybody for the following lessons.
Okay, great, thank you. So you talked a little bit about the challenges, Chao, in the program. How about for Jordan and Margot, what did you think was the most challenging aspect of the program?
I personally, oh, sorry, Jordan.
No, go ahead, go for it.
I think the hardest thing for me, coming again, being used to being a really good, hardworking student, which is a lot of the people in the program, getting used to the idea that all my work was not going to be perfect. And there's a lot of work. So if you try to do everything perfectly, you're going to drive yourself a little crazy. So I think that was one of the hard things, was just relaxing, not really caring about grades, just caring about what you were learning, and kind of making, for me, I made it more personal goals rather than looking at the overall grading. And if I was happy with how I did, I think that kind of helped me out of that pitfall. So.
Okay, thank you. Jordan.
Yeah, and I would yeah, really emphasize that point, because yeah, it's just the assignments come fast, and even you just don't really, or maybe some people do. For me, I didn't found that trying to get everything perfectly done just wasn't the right thing for me. And I think it's nice to have a balance of, there is a lot of work in the program and it does come kind of fast and furious, but just knowing that like it's going to be okay if you get a 90 instead of a 99 on something, like that's okay. And then I think the other thing, as far as just a challenge of the program, is just that it is it's fast, but it's also like every week you have a new set of assignments, and so it's kind of like it's constant. It's coming out every week, and you're kind of doing this. And so it's just be mindful of sort of like your own, I guess, stress levels, and find ways to work with other people to maybe help make things a bit easier, and don't try and do everything on your own. That really will help you to kind of get through all the workload.
Thank you. Chao, did you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I want to echo what Jordan has just said. I think the big component of MDS is also like learning together with other people, and that's a very important experience, and that could be applied to your future career as well. So I think that, yeah, I would say that's like a really big component, and I learned a lot from the faculty, the TAs, and as much as I learned from my cohort or classmates.
Great, thank you. Yeah, because you're in the program full-time, Monday to Friday, with the same people, because it's a cohort-based program. So you take the same classes with the same people throughout the 10 months, or I guess 8 months, and then the last 2 months is a capstone. So you get pretty close to your classmates. Would you agree with that?
Definitely.
Yes. Great. So you talked about the pacing and the intensity of the program. So how would you describe that? Can you go a little bit further into that?
Yeah. Well, I can say that, how can I best it's fast, but it's not unreasonable. And it's about, I guess, picking and choosing when and where you really want to go the extra mile. If there's something you're particularly interested in, you can always, go sort of the extra mile. A lot of the assignments have bonus questions where you can get extra marks, but it's also like there for if there's a subject you're particularly interested in. All I can say about the pace is that I think it's reasonable, but it's also a lot. So you're going to be working hard, but it's not crazy. And yeah, working with others really, really is like number one tip, because it'll help make everything a lot easier.
Yeah, so for our cohort, the 2022 cohort, basically Sunday is the day we didn't have any work. Our assignments were due Saturday night at 6 p.m., which is to give you some time to actually decompress and relax on your Sunday, which I personally really needed every Sunday. I did not want to think about MDS. I know some people are much more wanted to be doing more data science on their weekends. Personally, I just needed a moment. But basically every week you have your classes, you have your labs. Every single lab has an assignment attached to it. Friday was kind of a work day where you could just work on all your assignments, get kind of caught up with things. And then yes, Saturday at 6 p.m. That's the final date. And then twice in a month you do your quizzes as well. So quiz week is extra on top of your labs and everything. So those weeks were always a little more stressful than the other weeks.
Yeah.
How about for your cohort, Chao?
It's pretty much the same. Yeah, they summarize. Margot summarized it really well. For me personally, I found the module in January in the second semester is the most intensive, and overall, I would say it's definitely like a full-time. It's a full-time master program.
Great, thank you. So you talked about the intensity. There's a question about working part-time during the program. Is that something that you did or would recommend or would not recommend?
Yeah, so I did that. I was working probably 10 hours a week outside of the program, and I would not recommend it. It was doable, but I would say that were I to do the program again, I would have not done that. Yeah.
I did it at the start for September, and I think I wrapped it up around mid-October. So I, as well, I wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah, I didn't even try, and I would also not recommend it.
Great, thank you. So you also mentioned courses a little bit. Can you talk about courses? Are they more, and you mentioned quizzes, are they more test-based or project-based or a combination?
I would say they're, so you have a lecture period for every class, and you also have a lab period for every class. And your labs are the main way you kind of solidify what you learn in lecture. So lecture, you just talk about all the different concepts. Labs, you get to apply those concepts. And then the quizzes just follow the content for the previous 2 weeks. So I found that the quizzes were not, for us at least, they were open book, open note. And again, just another way to kind of solidify what you've learned, but I didn't find necessarily that the quizzes dictated much about, how your semester went. Obviously you want to do well at them, but doing well at your labs will get you pretty far as well. So.
Yeah, I would say if you're doing all the labs, to the best of your abilities, you are like, at least I found I was like 90 to 95% already ready for the quizzes. So yeah.
Okay. That was kind of the same your cohort, Chao?
I don't remember we have open book quizzes. Maybe it has changed over the years. I remember the quizzes, they're the test questions, they're not project based. And essentially they are sanity check to check that your understanding of the course material. And I think that should be the purpose of the quiz rather than getting all the questions right. It is to reinforce what you have learned in the module.
Right. But you also did projects, some courses where you worked in teams of students with colleagues and peers on projects. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So specific questions about how many hours per week outside of class did you spend on coursework and studying?
I kind of had a schedule going. I'm an early bird. I work better in the morning than I do in the evening. So I was probably working by 5:30 in the morning because that's just kind of my schedule. And by 6 or 6:30 in the day, I would always call it quits because my brain was tired. I spent every Saturday pretty much from sun up till 6 p.m. working. And then on quiz weeks, occasionally I would also work part of the day on Sunday. So most of my days were filled with studying.
Yeah. I was similar. I would try and call it quits by Friday afternoon, and I would basically try to avoid working on Saturdays if at all possible, which for the most part was doable. Like I would say that we were able to get the majority of our work done, like between sort of classes started at 8:30 a.m. and then I would try to leave campus at 5 or 5:30, and I guess there was like 3 hours of lab and maybe 4 hours. So 4 hours outside class from Monday to Thursday, and then up until 5 p.m. Friday. That would allow me to get most of the work done. Usually I wouldn't have to work on Saturdays, or sometimes, but yeah.
Great. Is it me, or can you hear Chao, or is it my computer?
She's cutting in and out.
Yeah. Chao, can you maybe repeat, start from the beginning?
Yeah, of course. Sorry. I remember because Monday, Thursday until 5, depending on the work on the day. Friday morning, camp.
Chao, I think it's hard to hear you. Maybe can you log out and log back in again? Thank you. Sorry about that. While Chao is logging back in, there is a question for Jordan. Jordan, you mentioned that you had an extensive background in statistics and programming. So what are there any new things you learned in the program? How did the program kind of add to what you already knew?
Yeah, for sure. And I should clarify that I had a background in math and programming, but it had been probably 6 years since I'd used any of those skills prior to MDS. And it was those 6 years where I was working mostly in marketing. And while there's a little bit of that stuff, there wasn't really any programming, and I wasn't really using those statistical sort of things. But I would say that, like, yes, in the very beginning, the first module, there was a lot of stuff I had seen before, and there was some review. I would say that, like, even though, and many of the statistical concepts we learned throughout the program, like, I had maybe touched on them or heard of parts of them, but I would say that the way it was taught, and then just the fact that it was very comprehensive, or I felt that like I had a really good grasp on a lot of the statistical concepts that I didn't have a grasp on before. It didn't really feel like review to me, because it progresses really fast. That's the thing. Like, even though you start kind of with some of the more basic stuff and more concepts, it moves on from that in a hurry and builds on that. So yeah, like I know one of the guys I spent the most time with in the program, I think he already had a master's in statistics, or no, maybe a major in statistics, and so yeah, even he was learning new things as part of the sort of like statistical side of the program. So anyways, yes, it moves fast.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Welcome back, Chao. You were talking about how much time you spent studying and what your schedule looked like. So let's try that again.
Can you hear me well this time?
Yes, it sounds much better.
Okay.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, so I was saying Monday to Thursday, I usually stay on campus until like early evening. And Friday morning, I'll come to campus and work with my classmates usually, and I usually finish around Saturday noon.
Great, thank you. Okay, so continuing on this work life or school life balance, those kind of questions, what are your tips for success as an MDS student? So if you had to pick, I don't know, 2 tips or 3 tips each, what would you say?
I would say take Sunday off, because for me, it was really important to reset and have actual time to catch up on life and just sit. To definitely find a group of people who you click with and work well with. It helps get through the assignments, and it just makes everything more fun when you can kind of just hang out with your friends and do work. Those would be my top 2 tips.
Great.
Yeah, I agree with both of those wholeheartedly. And I would add very strongly, I believe in this, go to class. I found that it was like, that was just huge for me. Like actually, like, even though I forget exactly, there were months where we were fully remote and there were months where it was optional or kind of hybrid. I kind of forget, and I don't know what it is now, but I know that lots of students were, choosing to watch the lectures at home, even when there was opportunity to go into class. But I would really, really say that it's worth going in, because A, you meet people and you spend more time with people, which A, is just fun, but B, it's going to probably help you on in your career when you're looking for a job and you have friends in the industry. And it's just, I don't know, I think you get to meet all the staff in person and develop relationships with them. And I think that's just huge, to actually go to class.
Thanks, Jordan. Chao?
Good tips. I think for me, the first one I'll say is to enjoy the learning experience, enjoy the program, rather than worrying about finding a job. These, like, starting interviewing, applying for positions. I think the program is very well designed, and this is a dedicated time to absorb all these information. So I think if I could redo it, I wouldn't be stressed out about like the next step. I would focus even more on the current experience. And my second tip is similar to what they have said, is to work with your peers. For me, I didn't have a background in data or in computer science, so MDS is literally a starting point of me building my community in data science. So working with like people in your program is, I think it really benefits in the short run and long run.
Great, thank you. Yeah, just to come back on a couple of things, Jordan mentioned about being hybrid and online part of the part of the time, and that was because of COVID. Obviously, we had to be flexible, and some I think block 1 for your cohort was online, and then we went back in person. But currently, our current cohort is 100% in person, and we are obviously expecting that the next cohort starting in September 2023 will also be 100% in person. Okay, so the program is, for those that have done the research, it's a 10-month program, and the first 8 months is, as you described, lectures and labs, Monday to Friday, lots of, studying and doing homework and doing assignments. The last 2 months of the program is a capstone project. So can you, maybe each of you, talk a little bit about your capstone project really quickly, and then I'll ask you some more questions about capstone specifically.
I can start. I worked for a company called Viewpoint AI, based out of Vancouver. I had a group of 3 other MDS students with me, and we were in charge of making a career recommendation system. Basically, the company is trying to create modules that recommend every different aspect of a person's life. And so we were working on their career model. So our experience was a little bit different than most of our other cohorts, because our partner came with limited data. So we spent a lot of time data collecting, organizing the data, and then also building a recommendation system. So
great, thank you.
Yeah, I did work for a company called Pixels. We basically built an image classification model. I can't talk about what we actually did because I signed an NDA, but I can say that it was really great. I really enjoyed those 2 months, and I felt like it not only was it very practical, but it kind of gave me this like confidence that like I knew that, because it was a very successful project, and I now know that like, okay, given sort of a problem like that, I know that I'll be able to figure it out basically. So it really helped. Yeah, not only was it like really enjoyable, it was great to work with other people in the program. The person who I did the like our capstone partner, he ended up being a really great reference for me to help me get the job that I just got. So yeah, I would say it was awesome.
Thanks.
So I did a NLP related project. I, along with 3 other classmates, worked for a startup called TeachLab. So what we did was to improve their existing API discovery tool. So we experimented with some traditional ML models and NLP techniques. And back in my cohort, the NLP was only covered in one of the courses. So completing this capstone project really gave us a boost in terms of more advanced NLP knowledges. And so I find it really beneficial for me, especially when I look for my first job after MDS program.
Thank you. Yeah, so for Capstone, how did the skills you learned in the program prior to Capstone, how did you apply them in your Capstone project? Was it a good match? Is there something that maybe you wish you had learned in the program prior to doing the Capstone?
for me, I would say it is a really good extension of allowing you to kind of dig into topics that you learned during the first 8 months, because there's so much information you get, and sometimes you can't kind of go as deep as you want to into some topics. So for me, I also got to kind of dive more into NLP, recommendation systems. I think we only talked about for a week. And so it was fun kind of going and exploring and diving more into those topics. So I'd say everything that I did in my capstone project was touched on, but I really got to learn more.
Yeah, I would say that the program prepared me very well for the capstone project in the sense that like I had all the foundations that I needed to sort of like I knew where to start. Like in some cases, I already had the skills and I knew exactly what needed to be done. And in other areas of the capstone project, I knew sort of like the framework that I was working with and the sort of high level of what needed to be done. And then it was a matter of like filling in all the gaps, which is great. Like you don't, yeah. In anything, you're never gonna, like when you doing something completely new, like you're probably not gonna already have all the skills. So like, yeah, I felt that at least I had the foundation that I needed and I could figure everything out there.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think the course materials provide me a toolkit to pick what techniques I want to use, or for the for the capstone program. And in addition to that, you will have the capstone partners. Some of the capstone partners, they are data science professionals, so they can provide you with more advice or give some guidance. And you'll have a mentor, which back then was someone from the faculty, and they will follow you closely during this capstone project. And my faculty member, my mentor, she has also provided lots of extensive reading materials, guidance. So I feel confident that of what I've learned in the past, and I feel like the capstone is a really good complement to what you have learned in the past 8 months.
Great, thank you. Let's talk a little bit about life after MDS. So can you talk about how you found your job after graduation?
Yeah, I actually found my job posting. So I went about finding a job as just apply for everything and see what came my way. The job I'm in now was actually posted on, there's an alumni Slack channel that every MDS alumni is a part of. Someone there had posted that there was this data engineering position open. I got a chance to actually talk to him a little bit about the position. And when he left, MDS does, if you, at least in my case, they like the prior employee quite a bit. So him saying, hey, I have another MDS graduate who might want the position, I think that definitely gave me a leg up in the interviewing process for my position.
Great. So yeah, so there is a pretty robust alumni community that everyone obviously stays part of after graduation. And like Margot was saying, there is jobs that we and also the alumni post on this Slack channel that everyone can have access to. Chao or Jordan?
Go ahead.
Sure. Yeah, so for me, so I had been looking at a few different companies. I wanted a company in Vancouver, and there was a few different companies I was already aware of that I was really interested in working for. In sort of, finding those companies. Anyways, I basically found this job posted on Indeed, but I was already aware of the company. And yeah, I applied, and that's kind of it. Pretty simple. I was also talking with, at the time when I got this job, I was talking with my capstone partner, and the company that basically we did this capstone project. Vore is a fairly new company, and he was hoping to be able to hire me, but he couldn't quite get the funding in time. So anyways, that was another option that that could have worked out really well.
Thanks, Jordan. Chao?
Yep. For me, my hiring manager back then, he is the mutual connection of my capstone partner. So through learning the capstone and working with my capstone partner, I know my hiring manager, and they also heard about the project I've done and my past more like business focused experience. So that's how I landed my first job after MDS.
Great. Thank you. So it's all about networking, right?
It helps quite a bit to have a network.
Yes.
Okay, so what do you think are typical career paths or job titles students pursue after graduation? So not just in your case, but maybe classmates or what you know about the industry?
Looking at job listings, I felt like I could really apply to data science, data engineering, some software engineering positions. Those were my main focus, at least, but all those titles, I definitely felt like I was qualified for a lot of those positions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I would add, like, there were a lot of like machine learning engineer titles out there that I also felt very qualified for. Yeah, but that basically covers it.
I would add, depending on your experience and interest, there's also data engineers. There's now, I think, a rather new title called analytic engineers. Some people go for data science consultants, data science managers, or data science focused product managers or program managers also apply to some other people.
Yeah. And what do you think the industry is? How do you think the industry is growing? Is it growing in your opinion? Like, you're all working now. Are you seeing a lot of job openings? Do you think, with people say there might be a recession coming or is already here? What do you think the job opportunities or prospects are in Vancouver and in Canada, if you can comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, there definitely are tons of data science related, machine learning related roles in and around Vancouver. That was kind of the area I was searching in. And one of the things, and maybe this is a slightly detour, but is don't be afraid to, like, the job that I'm currently in, I really want to be in machine learning. And the role that I'm currently working in is going to be a software engineer, but I've talked to the company and it's like, if all goes well, I'll be moved into a machine learning role really, really soon, because that's primarily what I'm interested in. And so anyways, my point being, like, a lot of the times it can be a good decision to just get a job with a company that you really like, rather than the exact role that you are looking for. And then sort of like, once they know what you're capable of, and then you might be able to move into that role that you originally wanted or that you really wanted. So that's just a way to widen the search. But yeah, I mean, from my perspective, it seems like there are lots of jobs out there with sort of the titles that we would be qualified for.
Yeah, I was feeling, because I mean, both me and Jordan were just job hunting the past couple months, or within the last 4 or 5 months. I found that new jobs were popping up every week that I could apply for. And a lot of companies, there were a lot of companies who I interviewed with who didn't have a data program, but were starting data programs. So I definitely know it's a really big thing for a lot of companies right now to try to get their data organized. And that's the way a lot of business is going. So I would definitely say I would be very surprised if data science became jobs became limited in the near future. But to second also what Jordan was saying about applying for jobs specifically for a role you want, going into job hunting, I thought I really wanted a data science job. But now that I'm doing data engineering, I actually find that I really enjoy it. And I can't say I knew per se what data engineering specifically entailed. But definitely don't limit yourself at the beginning unless you have very specific criteria. But for me, I'm kind of new to the data science world, so I definitely wanted to keep my options open.
I just want to make a comment on the previous question. I forgot to mention that there's applied scientist, decision scientist, business intelligence engineer, and data analyst. And that's also what people go after for. And in terms of the job market, I think it's definitely growing compared to 2019 when I first applied for jobs, especially with the remote working or hybrid working opportunities. So that's, yeah, I definitely see that growing. I do see there's some headwind in terms of this couple of months. You might see that on the news, but I would say overall, the trend is like this. There's definitely a decent sized market.
Great.
Yeah. And one quick thing I would add is that don't be afraid when you see listings that, like, I think a lot of companies tend to shoot for the moon when they make job postings. And so don't be afraid to apply for roles that maybe feels like the description is of a more experienced person. Like many of the job postings you see out there for a machine learning engineer will say, like, we want 3 years experience. But then they're just, you know, there aren't that many, well, there are more jobs out there than there are machine learning engineers with 3 years experience looking for jobs. So don't be afraid to apply for those, because you're definitely able to still get those jobs.
Yeah, they're looking for the perfect person, but that perfect person probably doesn't exist, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that. Maybe let's talk a little bit about how you feel that the MDS program opened doors for you at companies that maybe you didn't have without taking the MDS program. And so, first of all, did you feel that's the case? And then secondly, what other activities would you recommend people do, or maybe you wish you had done, to open even more doors, so aside from studying and the workload?
Well, prior to doing MDS, I did actually apply for a lot of the jobs that I applied for afterwards, similar titles, that sort of thing. And I hardly ever got any kind of response back. And second time around at the end of MDS, the number of interviews, I've probably got 10 to 12 interviews. So I think just that alone shows me that having that data science background on my resume really was what pushed me into actually being able to get the jobs. Previously, I had coding experience, I had a math background, but just not enough to really kind of edge me out of the competition. And then as far as things that I wish I had done, I probably, one thing that I wish I had time to do that I would say I didn't during MDS was doing more. There's always like coding competitions, and online there's lots of get with a group of people and try to solve this problem kind of things. But I just didn't feel like I had time during MDS, and that's actually something I'd like to do now that I'm done with MDS, just because I have more spare time. So that's one thing that I think can really push you up as well, get you using the skills you're learning in MDS. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. As far as something I wish I'd done during MDS, I wish I'd taken advantage of the mentor program. I think, I forget exactly what it's called, but maybe Milad can clarify after.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wish I'd taken advantage of that. And I think that would have, helped to even broaden maybe my network a little bit and learn more about the industry. And but another thing, so as far as like, yeah, how MDS helped me, I mean, I had spent the 6 years prior to MDS working in marketing, and so I knew that I really wanted to go back. I was really interested in you know, machine learning in particular, but the tech industry, I guess, in general. And I knew that there was no way I could get a job, even though I felt I probably had some of the skills already. There was no way I didn't even try applying for those jobs, but yeah, I'd say it was huge for me to be able to sort of change my whole career around back into sort of this tech world, I guess. And then even on top of that, like, and this won't happen for everybody, but for me, I now have a great relationship with my Capstone partner. And, you know, so for some people that will be a big sort of like perk or asset or something that they get from the program as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, these are, I totally agree with what Margot and Jordan said. And for me, I would strongly recommend, if you have the time, participate in hackathons or like projects or competitions, and you can team up with your classmate to do it. That really helps to complement your resume, especially if you don't have a lot of the data science experience in the past. And MDS is huge for me. I remember I did apply for maybe like marketing analyst or data analyst job before MDS, even though I feel like I'm quite equipped with the domain knowledge, maybe not as strong as the technical knowledge, but I wasn't able to get interviews before the program. Yeah, so it really helped me pivot my career.
Thank you. Yeah, so to come back to the mentoring program Jordan was talking about, it is called the mentoring program, MDS mentoring program. So we match up two current students with industry mentor. Sometimes that person is an alumna or alumnus, or sometimes a person that is just working as a data scientist or related field in industry. So we match those industry mentors or alumni to two students, and so we kind of build that relationship while you're studying as well. And Vanessa posted a link to the mentoring program information in the chat. We're getting a couple of questions about your work, what you're doing at work. So a specific question for Margot. You mentioned that you really liked your data engineering role, even though you initially wanted a data scientist role. Can you talk a little bit more about the differences between what a data engineer does and what a data scientist maybe does?
Yeah, I have to admit, when I got a data engineering job, I didn't really know what the difference was. I now clearly know there's some very big differences. So data science are more on the analytics side. So you get nice data from databases. Maybe you're reading data in from a bunch of different places, but you're doing all the analysis. There's a lot of machine learning involved. There's a lot of, you might be doing neural networks, that kind of stuff, to come up with what is the data telling you. Specifically in my job that I'm in right now, data engineering, my company is more about how to get data. Basically, our company has 8 to 10 different computer programs, all the different departments used. So we're working on getting all that data into one spot and being able to use it for reporting. So it's a lot of building data pipelines to move data from one place to the other. And one of the things I actually found I like most about my job is how much I get to interact with other people. I like talking to all the different departments and really just troubleshooting how we can solve their issues with data and how the movement of data can really help that. So there's less analysis and more pipeline building. Yeah, so I would say that was the main difference I found in a data engineering role.
Thanks, Margot. A question that has come in, we have 5 more minutes left or 6 more minutes left, so maybe quickly, what your typical work days or work weeks are like in your current roles?
My current work is project-based, and usually I'll work on more than one project because there's dependencies and and other timeline considerations. And I work with an engineering team. So I work as a data scientist. We also have machine learning engineers. So I work with the machine learning engineering teams and product managers and engineering managers. And the projects I'm getting is really a variety of projects. Similar to what Margot said, it's more focused on the analytic problems or statistic problems, or because we have machine learning engineers, so I'm not dealing with machine learning problems at the moment. Yeah, that's for me.
Thanks, Chao.
My day, because I am the data team at my company, because they are just starting to get into data. It's a construction firm. Most construction firms don't have a data team. My day consists of I do a lot of just trying to problem solve, trying to come up with solutions to people's problems, and thinking about it kind of through a data lens, which everyone else doesn't really have that background in data. So really just trying to take the problems they're having and figuring out how the data can solve it. And then there is also some coding in my days. There's a lot of SQL and database work. So I get quite a hodgepodge of things to do, but I'm always busy, so.
Thanks, Margot.
Yeah, and I am starting my job in a couple weeks, so nothing to report.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so with that, I would like to wrap it up. Thank you so much, Jordan, Margot, and Chao, for joining us this afternoon. It was very useful, very interesting for me anyways. I hope that it was just as interesting for our participants. Again, thank you so much for joining us, everyone. And we look forward to receiving a lot of applications this year. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.